Good morning, children. I hope you all are fine. Today, for our English, we're going to learn a new lesson. The topic of the lesson is My Dearest Lizzy. And this is an extract. That means from a big story, the whole story, only a little portion has been taken and that we are going to learn. When they say dearest, that means they are very close. Who do we call dearest? Only the people we love. Who is very close to us, we call them dearest. And the author of this story is Jane Austen, and she lived between 1775 1817. She was an English novelist. She is one of the most well-known writers in English literature. Austen was educated at home and lived a secluded life, that is very lonely, alone. She wrote and published her novels anonymously. That means her original name was kept secret, and nobody knows that she has written and published. She wrote about the quiet life of small English towns and villages. This is an extract from Jane Austen's novel Pride and Prejudice. What is the meaning of pride? Everybody knows. Where you boast. You are very proud that you have got this and that. That is pride. And prejudice means preconception. That is, you already, before you see or something, you come to a conclusion. That is preconception. Pride and Prejudice. That is the topic of the novel, which is about the spirited Bennet family. It talks about, the whole story talks about Mr. Bennet and his family. Mrs. Bennet is obsessed with finding suitable husbands for all her 5 daughters. So Mr. and Mrs. Bennet, they live in a place and they have 5 daughters, and their concern, their worry is about finding a suitable husband for their daughters. When a wealthy young man, a rich man, his name is called Charles Bingley, takes a house nearby, Mrs. Bennet is overjoyed. Her eldest daughter, Jane, succeeds in impressing Mr. Bingley. She is invited to his place at Netherfield. There she falls ill and sends a letter to her family. So this is starting. Where are we entering into the story? Mr. and Mrs. Bennet, they have got 5 daughters. The eldest daughter's name is called Jane. And Mrs. Bennet's main concern is finding good husbands for the girls, 5 daughters. The eldest one's name is called Jane. Now, near to their house, a wealthy man is just moving in. His name is called Mr. Bingley. And as she expected, Mrs. Bennet expected, Jane is very close to Mr. Bingley, and they are going to get married, like they like each other. At this time, and they have invited, Mr. Bingley has invited Jane to go with him to his house. The place is called Netherfield. That is where his parents and everyone are living. So Jane goes with Mr. Bingley to Netherfield. Now what happens? After she reaches there, she's sending a letter. Okay, let us read the story. Jane had not been gone long before it rained hard. So as soon as she leaves, it was started to rain. Her sisters were uneasy for her. That means all her sisters are uneasy, means they think, oh, She's just left and it's raining. What will happen like that? But her mother was delighted. When the sisters were worried that she'll get wet in the rain and all, mother was delighted. What she was thinking, the rain continued the whole evening without intermission. Everybody knows what is intermission, isn't it? A break without stopping. So without intermission, without stopping, it was raining. Jane certainly could not come back. Mother was delighted. She wants her daughter to go stay in Mr. Bingley's house and move very close to them like that. She wants her daughter to stay there and get friendly with them. So she was delighted. This was a lucky idea of mine indeed, said Mrs. Bennet more than once, as if the credit of making it rain were all her own. So she feels that rain has done something favorable, good for her, because she has sent her daughter there. Till the next morning, however, she was not aware. So the next morning, she was not aware of all the felicity of her contrivance. That means the positive result of her arrangement of the situation. What was her expectation? Jane should get close, isn't it, to that family? So the morning news is coming. Breakfast was scarcely over when a servant from Netherfield brought the following note for Elizabeth. So Lizzy is Elizabeth. Lizzy, let's like a pet name we shorten and call, no? So Elizabeth is called Lizzy. So she's getting a note from her sister Jane from Netherfield. So what is written in the letter? I find myself very unwell this morning, which I suppose is to be imputed to means be caused by. Okay, the reason. What was the reason? My getting wet through yesterday. So because she got wet in the rain and she's unwell. My kind friends will not hear of my returning till I am better. So she is talking about my kind friends here means the Mr. Bingley's family. Okay, they will not allow her to return home until she feels better. They insist also on my seeing Mr. Jones. Therefore, do not be alarmed if you should hear of his having been to me, and excepting a sore throat and headache, there is not much the matter with me. Yours, etc. So this was the letter. Well, my dear, said Mr. Bennet, when Elizabeth had read the note aloud, if your daughter should have a dangerous fit of illness, if she should die, it would be a comfort to know that it was all in pursuit of Mr. Bingley and under your order. What the father is trying to tell, following Mr. Bingley to make him interested in marrying her. Oh, I am not afraid of her dying. People do not die of little trifling colds. That means unimportant. It's an ordinary, simple colds. She will be taken good care of. As long as she stays there, it is all very well. I would go and see her if I could have a carriage. Elizabeth, feeling really anxious, was determined to go to her, though the carriage was not to be had, and as she was no horsewoman, walking was her only alternative. She declared her resolution. How can you be so silly? Cried her mother, as to think of such a thing. in all this dirt? You will not be fit to be seen when you get there. I shall be very fit to see Jane, which is all I want. Is this a hint to me, Lizzy? Said her father, to send for the horses? No, indeed. I do not wish to avoid the walk. The distance is nothing when one has a motive. Only 3 miles. I will be back by dinner. I admire the activity of your benevolence, observed Mary, but every impulse of feeling should be guided by reason, and in my opinion, exertion should always be in proportion to what is required. We will go as far as Meryton with you, said Catherine and Lydia. So these are her sisters. Um, what opinion they have got, they are just telling. So one sister is telling, Mary is telling, you are very kind enough. And what she is telling, the amount of trouble taken should be equal to the desired result. So Mary is another, Elizabeth, Mary, Catherine and Lydia. So Catherine and Lydia are telling, we will go with you halfway. So Elizabeth accepted their company, and the three young ladies set off together. If we make haste, that is, if we go very fast, said Lydia, as they walked along, perhaps we may see something of Captain Carter before he goes. In Meryton, they parted. So parted means two girls, Lydia and Catherine, they stopped. And what did they do? The two youngest repaired to the lodgings. That means they went back home of one of the officers' wives. And Elizabeth continued her walk alone, crossing fields after field at a quick pace. That is, she was very taking long steps and jumping over stiles. That is, it's like steps made over a fence or a gate. So she was jumping and walking very fast stiles and springing over puddles. So there is water stagnated, all the puddles. She was springing means just jumping over it, and impatient with the impatient activity, and finding herself at last within the view of the house, when with weary ankles, dirty stockings, and a face glowing with the warmth of exercise. So you can picture her situation, because she walked in the puddles and jumped, and her stockings became very dirty, and her ankle is very weary means tired, and the stocking is dirty, and her face was glowing with warmth of exercise. When you do something very hard and you sweat a lot and your color turns, isn't it? Like that, it became red for her. She was shown into the breakfast parlor, where all but Jane were assembled, and where her appearance created a great deal of surprise. So everybody in the house, they were surprised to see her, and that she should have walked 3 miles so early in the day in such dirty weather and by herself was almost incredible. That is unbelievable to Mrs. Hurst and Miss Bingley, and Elizabeth was convinced that they held her in contempt for it. And she was received, however, very politely by them, and in brothers' manners there was something better than politeness. There was good humor and kindness. Mr. Doctor said very little, and Mr. Hurst nothing at all. The former was divided between admiration of the brilliancy which which exercise had given to her complexion, and doubt as to the occasions justifying her coming so far alone. The latter was thinking only of his breakfast. So this is the mood, what the thought they had in their mind when they saw Elizabeth coming all the way there. So what they were thinking, it's written here. Her inquiries about after her sister were not very favorably answered. Miss Bennet had slept ill, and though up, was very feverish. So she goes to see her sister. She is having fever. Elizabeth was glad to be taken to her immediately. Elizabeth was very happy as soon as she entered Mr. Bingley's house. She was taken to meet her sister. And Jane, who had only been withheld by the fear of giving alarm or inconvenience from expressing in her note how much she longed for such a visit, was delighted at her entrance. So Jane was very happy to see that her sister has come all the way to see her. She was not equal, however, to much conversation, and when Miss Bingley, that is Mr. Bingley's sister, left them together, could attempt little besides expressions of gratitude for the extraordinary kindness she was treated with. Elizabeth attended to her silently. So Elizabeth, because she loves her sister Jane, she walked all the way, and now she is attending to her. When breakfast was over, they were joined by the sisters. So after the breakfast is over, Elizabeth and Jane, they went and they met all that together. And Elizabeth began to like them herself when she saw how much affection and solicitude they showed for Jane. She was very happy to see how they have taken care of Jane. The apothecary, that means it's like a doctor, okay, came, and having examined his patient, said, as might be supposed, that she had caught a violent cold, and that they must endeavour to get the better of it, advised her to return. That is, making her understand, make her feel comfortable, okay. Return to bed, and promised her some DRAUGH. GH is pronounced as F. Drafts. That is, drafts means here some like medicine, cough medicines. The advice was followed readily. So whatever the instruction the doctor gave, they followed. For the feverish symptoms increased, and her head ached acutely. So she had severe headache. Elizabeth did not quit her room for a moment. So Elizabeth stayed by her sister, and she looked after her. Nor were the other ladies often absent. So everybody, even the ladies also. The gentlemen being out, they had in fact nothing to do elsewhere. So everyone paid attention on Jane, and they looked after. When the clock struck 3, Elizabeth felt that she must go, and very unwillingly said so. So she was not willing to go. She doesn't want to leave her sister and go alone. But she told her parents that she will be back for dinner, isn't it? So by 3 o'clock, if she starts now only, the 3 miles she can walk back home. But Miss Bingley offered her the carriage, and she only wanted a little pressing to accept it. That means once or twice, when Mr. Bingley said, you take the carriage, she willingly accepted. Who? Elizabeth. When Jane justified such a concern in parting with her, that means showed great reluctance to part with her. She was not willing to let her go. That Miss Bingley was obliged. She was very grateful to convert the offer of the chaise, that is, horse-drawn carriage, to an invitation to remain at Netherfield for the present. So she requested, and she told her to stay back. Elizabeth most thankfully consented. That means she agreed to stay back and to stay close to her sister Jane. And a servant was dispatched to Longbourn. That is the place where Mr. and Mrs. Bennet lived. Okay. A servant was dispatched, means she was sent there to acquaint, that means to inform the family with that she who is Elizabeth is staying back with Jane, and to get family with her stay and bring back a supply of clothes. And that's all. It's only a very small portion of the story. Read this, and there are some complication. The word is given. You have to choose whether it is right or wrong. Then we will be writing the question answers and the book exercise in the next class. Take the correct option. The first one is Jane's sisters felt uneasy for her because the first one, they were afraid that she would get wet. The number 2, Jane couldn't come back because it had not stopped raining, so she could not come back. Number 3, Jane's mother did not know till the next morning. What she did not know till the next morning? How well her plan had worked. C is the answer. The note from Netherfield had news about Jane's illness. C is the answer. Illness. She was not well. That's what the note had. Number 5, Jane was supposed to return to her own home. Okay. So read the whole story and learn all the new words and the meanings. And book exercise we will write the next class. Have a good day, children. Bye.